podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello, and join us on tonight's WRRAP podcast where we discuss three very positive results for the URC sides, one slightly less positive side, before slowly descending into depression as we talk about the WRU, Gwalia Lightning, and also us having to face Ireland later on. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the WRRAP podcast. As ever, it's me, Harley, your host. If you're watching on YouTube, I couldn't be bothered changing my name, so I am just host for tonight. I'm joined by the regular crew of Hattie, Nick, and Dan. How are we doing, folks?
Good evening. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Excellent stuff. Now we're going to go. We've got a lot to get through, because Nick has told me it's a bumper news desk. So we're going to start off with our drink of the week to try and get us through our celebrations and commiserations up and coming. So I'm going to start off with mine, which is Son of a Gun. So I think we've had this on the pub before. It's a hazy pale ale. It's nice, light, and refreshing. Hoppy. It's the sort of thing I would quite happily drink on in a summer's day. I've got a huge amount next to it. Who wants to go next?
Go on, I'll chip in next. I think we might have had this one as well. Troubadour,
Yeah.
5.5. And I'm not really an ale drinker, but I quite like this one. It's even though it's quite strong, it's quite flavoursome, softer, and yeah. So I think it's probably my favourite ale I've had so far.
Is that the Troubadour you got?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Well, I'll see you one Troubadour and match you with another one. And yeah, I'd agree. It's another there's another pokey one that we've had, isn't there? That's been in the set. This is 5.5. We've had a couple of 6.5ers, and yeah, this 10 or 12 of these would do the trick, wouldn't it?
And then finally, to sum it all up, I've got the Daedong Pale Ale. Oh, can you see? I was like, I feel like this would go well with something kind of bready. And then I read on the back that the people that brewed it also own a pizza pub in South Korea. So it makes sense.
I think I had that last time. I thought it was pretty good. It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. And if you would like to enjoy some of these wonderful exotic beers, why don't you head over to our sponsor, Beer 52. That's beer52.com/ and then put WRRAP for WRAP. Pay some postage and you get 8 free cans of beer. Right, so Beer 52, number one beer club, as you already know by now, because you're all faithful listeners. And let's be honest, I'm sure all of you have already subscribed and gotten your months free. But just in case you haven't, every month Beer 52 will send you 8 beers from a different city around the world, and it'll give you an eclectic mix of beers. You'll get beers, lagers, ales, stouts, porters, all sorts of different things you enjoy. In that free case, you also get some lovely snacks. You get a magazine, so you can read a little bit more about brewing and different breweries around the world. However, if you aren't a big fan of your darker beers and you prefer more lagers and pilsners and your Indian pale ales, then you can choose the lighter box and do that. Now, obviously, if you decide that you can't deal with eight cans of beer a month, then you can pause your subscription to have a month off, or you can just kind of try it absolutely free. Just remember, though, if you want to get your free post-it, just pay postage, and for 8 free beers, it's beer52.com/WRAP. RAP. I think I've had more than one of these by the sound I'm going with the slurring. I mean, that and gin tasting on the weekend is I think I'm still a little bit adult. Anyway, that's our Beer 52. That's our sponsor. Get them in before the Ireland game coming up. Now, all of that will be late towards the back end of the pod. First, we have a very busy news desk. So, Nick, reel them out.
Okay, well, I'll try and hopefully do it chronologically. Go back to last Tuesday morning, and it was announced by the WRU that former Scottish international and former Glasgow defence coach Peter Murchie will be joining the Wales backroom team in time for the inaugural national championship, which begins this summer. Murchie is currently defence coach with the Kobe Steelers, and he'll take up the role with Steve Tandy set up at the conclusion of the Japanese Rugby League 1 season in June. I've got another defence coach coming to Wales as well a bit later, but I'll just do a bit more of Welsh Rugby Union appointments before I ask you guys to chip in. Rhys Long has been appointed technical director to the Welsh Rugby Union. Long, originally from Porthcawl, and previously worked under Gatland when he read the national team analysis for 9 years, and obviously that corresponded with the glorious periods in Welsh history, rugby history, the Grand Slams and Triple Crowns, and so on. Most recently, he's been working as head of performance analysis at the English Football Association, and he'll take up his position at 160,000 position in April, and he'll report directly to the head of rugby and lead performance, Dave Redding. I've got nothing against Rhys, and I wish him all the very best in his role. But I've got a few questions around. We've got a period of austerity, so we're told, and coupled with the large salary increases that were evident in the WRU accounts to the end of the 2025 financial year, which were published last week. It seems that the senior leadership team and the executive board costs have gone up quite a lot, and it just doesn't sort of sit very comfortably with me, given what we know about what the Welsh Rugby Union can and can't afford. So I guess, colleagues, any comments from you on any of those two things?
I think it's brilliant that they're advertising for a six-figure legal counsel.
Yeah, that's
you'd think the WRU would have this sort of thing in house already if they were going to do big things like, I don't know, close down an independent business, or I don't know, endless sexism scandals.
Don't forget the racism.
I clicked the link on that. I clicked the link on that. I think I don't want to stick up from you, but I think it's for commercial purposes.
Right. Okay.
They want, I think the legal thing. I might be wrong. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think it's the legal thing. I think the Murchie appointment's good.
Yeah.
That'll be a good one for us. He's highly thought of, specialist defence coach, and
effective one as well.
Well, look what Glasgow did when they won the URC. So
definitely.
Something like a 13-point average conceded. Like that's dream numbers for most defence coaches.
Oh, good God, yeah.
Unless you're playing Wales, in which case, you really want to keep your goose egg on that one.
Yeah, hey, look, and I think nowadays rugby's more and more in favour of the attacking team, isn't it? You can't escort anyone into the catch anymore. It's even harder to win a ruck jackal because you can't put your hands past the ball. You got to support they're strict on body weight. So yeah, if he can get us down to conceding less than 4 tries a game in those first couple of fixtures in the Autumn Nations, I think that'll be really good. The other appointment, could we spend I wonder how long his contract is. Could we spend 160k a year on something else? I don't know. It just seems like I hope he comes in and does really well, and I hope it makes a difference. And but I don't know. It just seems to me that his job description and what he's expected to do isn't quite black or white. It's a little bit grey to me at the moment, and it just reeks of public sector. Throw another middle manager in there. Yeah. That's that sort of thing.
It did really bother me that, because the whole point of Dave Redding was to be this overarching director of rugby for thing, and now they've had to go and put another job on for someone who knows about the rugby.
Yeah.
Well, why did we not just pick someone who, like one of the names that we talked about was like Stuart Lancaster. All right, maybe looking at Connor, maybe it was we dodged a bullet there, but that's someone with a proven track record of going through and building a system all the way through pathways so that a whole, not just one or two teams, but like a whole swath of teams under an umbrella are all geared to playing the same way. That he's putting in the performance needs. He's going down to the school level and saying, right, these are the facilities that we need to pump through professional athletes. What we've got with Redding was a guy who was very tangentially involved with a rugby team that won because they were professional, not because they were necessarily any better at rugby than other teams. They were just better fit. They just knew how to be professional. They did things like training and fitness, which was revolutionary back in the time when, when the Welsh teams turned professional and it was just about having extra money for a piss up afterwards. I feel like they just didn't really. So, he's looking at things from like a sporting performance perspective, but not every sport is the same for what will make a good high performance system. For example, a sport that's based on emotion and rivalries, sticking two teams in the exact same place and effectively being A and B doesn't really work.
Mm. I think for me, like, if we were spending the money on people who were doing their job so effectively and it was working so well, we were clearly, improving, I honestly would not bat an eyelid. I'd be like, fair enough, that's
Yeah,
market rate for
yeah.
somebody with those qualifications. However, that's not the case, and we're just spending a lot of money on management positions when we're also saying we're going to get rid of a side, and we're not getting any better. And when I say we're not getting any better, like, the regions to an extent are succeeding, but they're not. Like, there's clear issues which generally are money related because we don't have big enough squads, we can't really afford too many coaches, etc., etc. And then the men's national side is struggling for financial reasons. Women's national side struggling for financial. Like, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Do you? How long have they been at it now? Nearly 2 years.
New 2 years.
This
Yeah.
regime.
But yeah,
Other than the PRA, which only half the sort of rugby fraternity signed, what else has been achieved in 2 years other than upheaval, expenditure on more staff, expensive legal challenges? Because my understanding is Collier Keywood last week, I'm sure you'll touch on this now, Nick. Collier Keywood, when he appeared before the Senate, that had the video link in from London because they were in court up in London with the Scarlets, I believe.
Yeah.
Now there's all the stuff ongoing with the council and the Ospreys and all the rest. How much money are they spending on legal fees now? On top of it all, we haven't got the money. That's the thing. We can't afford anything. But we'll employ someone else on 160k a year for, even if it's 5 years, or however long his contract is, plus all these legal fees. Come on, have a look out the window. There's a real world out there. Let's get in it. We have, you've been there's been loads of talking done. For me now, it just shows that this is like almost typical public sector. Loads of talking, loads of meetings, loads of reviews, loads of middle management
consultancies.
stuck in. Like, oh, consultant for this, and oh, well, now we got to act on something. Oh no, we'll have another review. We'll have a meeting about the meeting about the meeting. It's just nonsense now. Nothing's changed in the rugby world, is it? For us, nothing's changed.
Okay, just sort of touching on this as well. Last Thursday, as Richard Colleague with by video link was put in front of the Senate Sports and Culture Committee with Senior Independent Director Alison Thorne and Director of the Community Game Getting John. I watched both the Westminster version and the Senate version, and I did think the level of scrutiny and the challenge to the vague statements, or when they didn't actually, the WRU officials didn't actually answer the questions, they were put right on that, and that was quite challenging at times, and I think it sort of unsettled them a little bit. But ultimately, what difference it'll make, I don't know. I think there will be a statement, which I haven't seen yet, as what happened when they went to Westminster, but they certainly were challenged around how they've lost the confidence of the Welsh public, and they were put in no doubt by some of the members of the Senate that that was their view, and that was the view of people they've spoken to, which I don't think went down as they very well with them. But I don't know if you've seen or saw any of it, but yeah, it was quite interesting in my perspective.
Yeah, I did see some of it, and I thought there were some marginally better performances than there were by the Common Select Committee.
Yeah.
But I still think it was a bit of a get out of jail free card, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I don't know. There were nowhere near as many tough questions that were asked and scrutiny delivered as if they went to a local, one of the supporters club meetings,
Oh yeah, definitely.
or even
Would
if
have
they
had a
came
far
on
more.
with people ultimately that they're more invested in the game
Yeah.
than they are. Yeah, yeah. For me, the performance of the questioning wasn't up to standard. It seemed to me to be a tick box exercise to say that they've done it rather than pushing for any proper scrutiny. Only my view.
I think a lot of people expect that when they go up for these committees, it's going to be like the Prince Andrew Newsnight interview, where it's just like raked over the coals and you have to answer the question. And it never is. It
No.
literally, as Dan said, it's just every politician is sat there with their question that their staff wrote out for them that couldn't offend anybody too much, and they've got to ask a question, then they tick it, and then that's done. It doesn't achieve anything.
Okay, moving on then. We talked about defence coaches. Well, on Friday it was announced that Tyrone Holmes has been appointed Wales as defence coach for as Wales women prepare for their Six Nations.
Hmm.
I believe he's South African born, Holmes, 39, and he has some experience of Test level rugby for the women's section as well, because he held a similar role for Scotland for the past 3 years. Is that correct, Hattie?
Yeah, I want to say he's been with Scotland since like 2019.
Right.
And then he started, from what I understand, because it's quite difficult to get through. Um, he's been with Scotland for a really long time, and has sort of grown within his role. So I think he was just an assistant coach, and then he grew within that and became in charge of the defence in the end. It's a really, really positive appointment. I think everybody's pretty happy about it. And yeah, really excited to see how it goes. It's exciting that we've pulled somebody in that's got test experience
Yeah.
in terms of coaching. Obviously, Sean Lynn is making that jump still from being probably one of the most, if not the most successful women's club coach imaginable to making that test level, which is a jump and it is a different style. And we're bringing somebody in that has that experience. So, yeah, I'm really, really excited. And if anything needs help, it's the defence.
Okay. And the final bit of news I've got, but obviously anybody else can chip in, is around the Welsh squad, the senior men's squad, in that it was announced that Kieran Azarati, who had to drop out originally through injury, but had some time off the bench for Cardiff on Friday night, has been called back into the Wales squad. And as young Ryan Woodman, I think he's 22, former under-20s captain, has performed very well for the Dragons last season and this season. They've been called up for the remainder of the men's senior Six Nations, and I think they've already joined up with the squad probably today. So good news, Dan, for Ryan in particular.
Yeah, I think it's well deserved. There's an argument that he should have been in the mix to start off with. He certainly talked about on this in our conversations, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Hard working guy, can play 4, 5, 6. And fair play is testament to his ongoing improvement, his ongoing performances. Very workman-like individual. Tough as teak. Will make his tackles, will carry the ball for you. Really good line out forward. And hopefully he gets a shot at it and impresses in training. But yeah, was he young lad? 22, is he, Ryan? I think.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he's got a big future in front of him. So when you actually look at, I think, at the wider age profile of a lot of the regions and the Welsh squad, I know it seems like a million miles away now, doesn't it? But you got to think like at some point he's going to be 27 and a
Yeah.
seasoned player. A touchwood injury, he's going to be even tougher. He's going to learn his trade, and we're on the upslope then. So people got to stick with it for now. But yeah, congratulations to Ryan. It's testament to his hard work.
And that's the end of the news from me, unless anybody else got anything else.
No, I think Cardiff have. I think Cornell Schmidt has gone back to South Africa for the thing, and we think Ethan Lewis probably has gone back to the Ospreys. But I mean that's just the Cardiff way of getting some people in on loan and then not playing them.
Well, I suppose there's one minor bit of news that is a little bit Welsh, I suppose, and that's Pivac being appointed
Oh, yeah.
the new
Benetton coach, yeah.
Bennett and DOR or head coach, wherever he's having.
So watch out for 3 years' time when he's finally brought in all the players he needs.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, isn't it? I read somewhere earlier on he'd probably like it over there because I think he's partial to a glass of wine, and it's top wine territory over there, I think, in there. So yeah, good luck to him, because irrespective of what you think of his tenure at with the Wales squad, he did a good job down at Parker Scarlets, didn't he?
Mm.
He did.
I
And
mean,
the Six Nations trophy
Oh, yes. I saw that.
caught on fire.
Oh,
Yeah.
how did that happen then?
Apparently, it was in a van, and like, I think it must have been like a crash or something, and it caught fire.
all I'm saying is nothing bad ever happened when we had that, and nothing bad has happened to the wooden spoon. So
The
clearly,
wooden
we
spoon
should,
is fine.
yeah,
We're looking after that.
yeah, and for another year, mate, another year as well. Right, so should we move on to some actual on the pitch action with the URC being back for one round only? So in round 12, that was kicked off by Cardiff beating Leinster in an absolute thriller of 8-7, which I'll be honest was just it was exactly what you expected when it was pissing down with rain at Cap. Lots of skidding balls, lots of balls being dropped. Yeah, I mean this game was. I think Cardiff actually played this really, really well, apart from one minor lapse, which let Luke McGraw in for a try. I think, it wasn't particularly pretty. I think Aled Davis, for as much as his kicking was really, really good, his passing was terrible, but it didn't really matter because really the ball never needed to go past 9 in this game. I think one of my standout moments has got to be Rico Ioane catching the ball in the backfield, and you see a moment where he looks like he has visibly soiled himself at Harry Millard running over him, which has led to the fantastic image of Rico Ioane wearing Harry Millard pajamas, who had Rico in his pocket the whole game. And it's just like, oh, I bet that's not the player that Leo Cullen thought he signed. I thought Cardiff did really well. We had their scrum on toast for a little bit, to the point where they had to bring on their full front row and Arthur Snyman on 30 odd minutes. And it still took Slimani 2 attempts at the legal scrummaging to get the penalty out of Reece Barrett, because Reece Barrett might actually be one of the best scrummaging props somehow. certainly in the Cardiff pack, because that's the players he's been going up against recently, and he's just worked his way around all of them. And then every time he seems to struggle, all of a sudden next scrum he's on top again. And I don't know how. Absolutely fantastic. Dan Thomas, um, you know, formerly of Bristol, formerly of out Scarlets way, just absolutely imperious, just scything everything down. Finish off with about 25 tackles or something in the end, and it just was horrible. I mean, a couple of caveats, like Leinster obviously were reduced as we were. Losing Harry Byrne like in first 10 minutes was hard going, but I mean that was exactly what we wanted. Dan would be happy with this as a defense coach. Only 2% of the game was spent in the Cardiff 22.
Oh, fantastic!
Like we properly own the territory there. And the way we saw up that last 10 minutes, I mean, poor Jacob Beetham ended up with a 15-minute yellow card because they deemed the line out before to start the last phase of play. They deemed that was before his time was up, and then Cardiff just basically ran that clock down for a good 5 minutes. And fair play to them, because I don't think we'd have done that last season. I'm not entirely sure we'd have done that before Christmas, to be honest. So yeah, that's all I've got to say about that.
No,
I thought,
sorry, Nick, go on.
I thought, to be honest with you, I thought Cardiff were totally on top until Beetham got yellow carded. It brought Leinster into the game, but I thought Cardiff had dominated until then, and well-deserved win.
The thing for me with that Beetham yellow card, if he because you have seen players catch that thing on the intercept. If he catches that, he's going quite a way towards the try line. But I suppose it's the risk reward thing. Sorry, Dan.
No, that's what I was going to say to you. I thought it was a dubious card, to be honest, because I thought he made a genuine attempt to.
Yeah.
It wasn't a slap down. He tried to catch it, but But again, this goes back to my point earlier on. That rugby's in favour of the attacking team now, more and more. So yeah, but what impressed me, the stat there, 2% of the game being played in Cardiff's 22. We spoke about this previously. That's why the kicking game's so important, because if the opposition can't get in your 22, they can't score tries.
Mm.
I mean, in fairness, it does show the Leinster's quality, the fact that only with 2%, that must be like one or two entries, they were still able to score a try from it. So it shows the quality that they've got. But what I was most impressed with from Cardiff's perspective was that last 2 or 3 minutes, where it's a 1 point game. You just got to retain the ball. And I thought they did it expertly. The kicking game, and you spoke about that. The territory stuff was fantastic. But the way they just ate the clock down, that's a long time to be doing that for 2 minutes plus.
Yeah.
Really long time. So good
And
on
you could
them.
tell Sam Grover White was waiting for them to seal off.
Yeah,
So the discipline of that was sort just so you know, they had 4 entries down. Leinster Cardiff had 7.
there you go.
I mean, it did lead me to one of the issues where I feel like Belgium might have spent a bit too much time throwing practice Lake in Elias, because he wasn't that bad before he went to Wales.
Yeah, I think. Well, look, all that matters is it's a hard. Then the conditions were atrocious, weren't they? And on those 4G surfaces, whilst it's not muddy and you can play games on the balls like a bar of soap. So, yeah, great win for Cardiff. Good on them. Well done.
The streets are saying that the Leinster piss shirt is cursed, and that's a direct quote from a comment that I saw. The Leinster piss shirt is cursed.
They did lose their way a little bit when would they lose with Harry Burnett fly off? They did,
Yeah. I think
we-
it's the problem is they're trying to turn Charlie Tector into the new Kieran Frawley, and it isn't working so far.
No, and hey, look, ultimately you make your own luck in sport, don't you?
That's right.
That's the reality of it. So the fact that he went off, that's the you roll the dice and you don't have proper cover on the bench. That's the result you get. But no, it's a well earned 4 points for Cardiff. So well done.
Absolutely. So next on, Hattie, we move up to the Hive in Edinburgh. So Edinburgh sneak out 24-19 on top of 24-19 in this one. I only caught the last sort of half hour of this, but actually, I don't think Scarlets did too bad considering you had a primary school child at 10.
Yeah, Hugh worked out that I think it was like our 9, 10, 12 had like an average age of 21 or 22 or something.
It was less than that.
Yeah, it might have been 20 even.
Yeah, it was like 20 in 4 months or something like that.
Or something. And then if you added in the like 13, it only made it up to like 21, 22, something like that. And they had an average height of like 5'8". I am glad. I know last week we spoke about Carmen Leggett-Jones going out with Gar and the two of them playing together. Actually, I'm kind of glad it wasn't. I'm kind of glad that it was the two young guys going together, because they're going to be playing together so much going forward, hopefully. That actually I was glad that they got a run out and they got kind of trusted with it. It did feel I'm glad the young guns were trusted. At the same time, you could tell that it was a bunch of very, very young players playing. Like Carmen Leggett-Jones's drop goal just before half time was a choice that he made. At the end of the game where it was sort of neck and neck, I think it was like 19 all. Again, I just feel like it was just very, very young players in that back line making those choices. Having said that, the first half, Edinburgh were just completely switched off, especially for the first Roberts try. They just let him through. Interesting stat for you all though is that Carwit Leggett-Jones, I'm assuming this was because he was targeted as being quite young, quite small. He was the second top tackler for the entire game with 15, which is a weird stat.
Getting very common.
He's getting very common, but it was just odd to me. The first was obviously Fletcher Anderson, but CLJ, the second was a bit odd. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're just allergic to scoring more than 3 tries at the minute. and that's what it comes down to. Like, I think if we hadn't have gone for the drop goal and I don't know, there's just a lot of we had some chances to make it for that fourth try. We didn't take them.
I think that I think we all got to cut Carwyn Leggett-Jones a bit of slack. Um, I think he's got all the nuts and bolts to be he's the incumbent. I think in that he's the future in that Welsh number 10 shirt as well. There's no doubt about it for me. I like the things he does. The fact he's made 15 tackles, he's only missed 2 all game. They would have targeted him knowing that he was only 6.5 years of age.
And 2'4".
And yeah, they would have targeted him. So it shows that he's tough as a pair of hobnail boots. You mentioned his decision making. That'll come. The exuberance of youth gets the better of him every once in a while, and I did feel really sorry for him that he got charged down for the for the kick that charged down that ultimately won the game. It was just it was the right thing to do to clear his lines. Just he got the trajectory wrong, wouldn't he? And it was a good charge down in the end, but you got to persevere with him because I think the lad's dynamite. I really, really do. To be less, he didn't look out of place, does he? In any of the games that he's played, he's going to have 2 or 3 years potentially at 20s, depending on I think when his birthday falls. Because could he still play?
I think he's
18?
probably going to be. I think he's going to be 3 because I'm pretty sure he has literally just turned 18.
Yeah, he was 18 in November, December.
Yeah, because I think he's only a little
It was
bit older than
literally
Tom
like
Howe.
it was like 3 weeks before he made his debut.
Yeah, well, if he's still in school, in theory, he could still play for Wales 18s this year, then, couldn't he?
Yeah, he
Because he'd
could.
be in sixth
Yeah.
form. So, but, yeah, you got, and I sound like a stuck record now, but they got to nurture him, got to coach him because he does have a future in front of him. He just needs reining in a little bit. That decision making will come. But yeah, I thought it was a decent performance on the whole from the Scarlets.
Yeah.
They probably deserved a little bit more out of it, maybe. But there you go.
I,
It's tough to go away and win.
I feel like the second half, there's a lot of learning that we taken from it. I think hopefully the likes of Corwin Leggett-Jones, Archie Hughes, etc., do take away something from this game and moving forward. And I think it'd be interesting to see how the rest of our season goes and who we pick and who we kind of leave off or phase out a little bit, based on the fact that we have no chance of making that top 8. So do we practice, like go on for the future and get some of our younger
Yeah.
boys at game time at this higher level where the stakes aren't very high, or do we persevere? And I kind of actually like the first option in letting Carlet Leggett Jones and Archie Hughes, etc., have that run out and have them get that high level game experience without so much pressure. I think it'd be good to see because the only way they're going to learn is by doing. Um,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's it.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, maybe you're right. They got nothing to lose for the rest of the year, have they?
No.
Anything you want to add to this one, Nick? Or
No, I think
Jim?
this means summed up. Yeah.
Right, so we'll move on to Saturday's action, and we're going to start off with Dragons with their 3rd draw of the season, and that makes them the most drawingest team in a season since the URC's been a thing with 3, and we still have 6 rounds to go. Before we go into the game, Dan, I just want to make a point because it has been brought up. 7,100 people for a game against Benetton. Now, typically the Italian sides crowds are usual. Those sides. This is brilliant, surely.
Yeah, it was thrown around on social media, wasn't there, for a couple of days beforehand that if you wanted to, go down and get a ticket, then you had to be hot off the press really because they were flying out the gate. They opened both stands, I think, north and south end as well, and one of them had started to fill up. So yeah, you're right. On a Saturday evening, also when ultimately all the sort of senior rugby as well has been played um, in the afternoon in Wales. So yeah, what a fantastic look! It just shows, doesn't it, that with a little bit of performance, they'll come back and they will start. They will start watching. So and I think this is a sort of average that the Dragons can expect week in week out. It's a shame we haven't got another Welsh derby at home to finish. I think our last one's a Scarlets and it away. So yeah, otherwise I think we could pack that out, and reach maybe even reach that magical sort of 10K mark that everyone likes to get to. But yeah, it was a fantastic crowd, wasn't it? And the atmosphere was rocking down there.
Did you see the video, Dan, of the Canadian couple who'd come over?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I did. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I think they'd when they're on tour with one of their youth
Yeah.
teams. So yeah, that was great. And I made a point on um Twitter in the week, like the Dragons. I think over the Fallow week had made an effort. I'm sure all the other regions have as well. It just comes up on my timeline again, out back in the community and doing a load of work with kids at Nanty Glow and Blenavon and down on Rodney Parade itself. And I know that at half time they have like a rugby festival every or tag festival every half time. They have the tag festival before the game on the weekend. It's just, if you think rugby's dying out in Wales, I think you're mad, right? It needs nurturing, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of kids every weekend
Hmm.
just living life, running around with a rugby ball in their hand. All right, some clubs may be struggling for numbers here and there, but it's I'm sorry, for me, we're still alive and kicking. Just needs a little bit more of a nudge in terms of investment and sort of structure, really. But anyway, I digress. We'll move on to the rugby at Rock in Rodney, and I thought, I got to be honest, having watched the whole thing back and looked at the stats, I didn't think Treviso had to do a lot for their two scores, if I'm honest. Um, Dragons led in terms of possession and territory stats. In fact, territory stats, it was 66-34 to the Dragons, which is fairly substantial, and we're sort of 55-45 in terms of possession. I think those two breakaways where Ratava scored eventually as well. He was swatting people out of his way, wasn't he? Like the Incredible Hulk running down that left wing. And to lay them in so early within the first minute was a bit of a kick in the teeth. But I thought the Dragons again battled back. This is a different team now. There's no doubt about it. I think when we played the Ospreys, one of the Ospreys lads says the best Dragons team he's ever played. And I think I'd stand by that. They battled their way back. Other teams previously would have folded. And it was the usual suspects. I thought the Nairn Owen was fantastic at 12. Finney and Nisi performed well at 13 for us. We had two injuries again early doors, losing Shane Lewis Hughes and Shea Hope. I hope it's not too bad for Shea Hope, because he's been dynamite for us. But having to bring Rodri on, in the first 9 minutes, I think it was, we lost the two of them. So that was unfortunate. I wish those boys the best. I thought Rio Dyer huffed and puffed and didn't quite manage to blow the house down on the weekend. A couple of unforced errors here and there. And I think ultimately that's what kept Benetton in the game. Discipline. We had Levi had a 20-minute red card, and we had another yellow as well, I think. So at one point we sort of down to 30. Yeah, we're down to 13. Unforced errors in the game for me were through the roof. The one that stands out for me, where Rio's caught the ball in the second half just as part of the back line and just drops it. That was sort of stereotypical of the way of our afternoon went. Angus O'Brien missing touch into the bottom corner now, whereas Martinez dropped the ball when we're in there 22 attacking a few times coming round the corner. It's those 1%ers that make a massive difference at this level of rugby, because you just let them off the hook. A few more of those passes stick, and we maybe get over for another couple of tries. I did feel for Angus as well, missing the conversion at the end, because he's been kicking particularly well lately. And I got to be honest, I think if he'd have kicked down, we'd have won the game by 2 points. I don't think anybody could have moaned that we didn't deserve that for nothing less than battling away. The one thing I am finding problematic for us, based on Saturday's performance, is we've lost both our tight heads, Rob Hunt for the season and Sibu Dlamani as well. Those are both big losses. Chris Coleman struggled at times. We went backwards. There were a couple of scrum penalties, and then we're going into the young lad Owain, I forget his surname now.
Is it
James, is
James?
it? Yeah, Owain James, who's only 20 odd years of age. So he's, that's just where we are in terms of depth at the moment. But how unlucky is it that, we lose both frontline tight ends? I hope Dylan Lewis isn't too far away now that he can come and, start for us, and we have Chris Coleman backing him up maybe. But I thought Owen James actually did okay when he came on. There's an argument to be made that he was more solid than Chrissy Coleman up there. And the other thing that let us down was our throwing in at the lineout. I thought was problematic. I think we only won 70% of our lineouts, and unfortunately, they were in key areas of the game. Yeah, we won 14 lineouts, and we only won 71% of those. And that's not enough if you want to be challenging for wins. But again, there's no doubt about it. I don't think anybody can argue that the Dragons aren't much improved this season. 3 draws. 2 of those should have been definitely wins, I would have said. The first one where we didn't want to take a drop goal, and this one on the weekend, I think, was in footballing terms, it was 2 points dropped rather than 1 point gained. And yeah, we're on the up. We've got a couple of difficult fixtures coming up now, haven't we? Because we literally enter the Lions' den as we fly over to South Africa. So I think we've probably missed out with on this home fixture, and drawing with the Ospreys and things like that at home as well, where we haven't made the most of our home advantage at Rodney Parade, because I can't see us picking up anything in South Africa in coming weeks. But it was a battling performance. They definitely deserved the draw. Evan Minto, the under-20 number 8, came on and had a good showing as well. And yeah, on the whole, it was again another positive performance from the men of Gwent. So good on them, and let's hope for some improvement now. I think we got to try and go probably fully loaded as well out to South Africa. We're going to have to, at least for one of the games. And if we can pick up a bonus point in each fixture, whether that's scoring 4 tries or maybe coming within 7, then I think that'd be a positive tour for us.
I'm just going to chip in there if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that was a game that Dragons most definitely would have lost last season.
Oh yeah.
I tried to leave the pub 10 minutes before the end, and I did think at that point, I thought, oh, they're just going to lose this. I can just see it. But fair play to them hanging on there, and as you say, could easily have won it. And Fulton, it was a very hard kick. But yeah, they definitely are improving. But I do think the South Africa tour is South Africa tour, but they've got to do something in those last few games, Dan, just to make it a successful season. I think they got 2, maybe 3 games home. They got Scarlets away. If they could win 2 or 3 of those games, I think you could definitely say they've turned a corner. It's just it's a bit on the sort of on the balance at the moment. They're certainly an improved team without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, and I think in between, either when's the next round of Europe, because we got to go to South Africa and we've got to go to South Africa.
Europe is straight after the South Africa tour for both us and you guys.
There you go. So there's 3 tough outings in there.
Yeah,
but you're right. I'm pretty sure that it's Edinburgh.
I think you got Edinburgh come to the parade. I think
Edinburgh come to Rodney Parade, and we go to Zebra.
Yeah, that's it. And then
Scarlets
away.
Yeah. Now winning 2 out of 3 there would be a success. Wherever
I think so.
Be. Yeah,
I think so, definitely.
I'd agree.
I mean, one thing I would say is, yeah, it's a bit disappointing, and you're saying you haven't made the most of your home advantage. But if you consider the journey of where you guys have been, even if you just look at the URC, I'd say you're already sort of doing that. You've turned some pretty horrendous losses into tight losses, and then those tight losses are now draws or narrow wins. And you're in a good position this season. Dragons Lair was talking about you having budget surplus this year, and you're going to increase your budget again so that you can bring in a few more quality players to supplement. I can't see there being too much reason why you can't push these on next season. It might be a little bit too soon in the season, but I mean, you definitely should be achieving for it. I don't think that'll do things.
totally agree. I don't think that. Yeah, I I think that the Dragons are more so now. If you're going to be looking for a club in Wales, arguably Dragons are one of the more attractive ones now. All right, we're not Cardiff, but there's, you know, people want stability. And I think maybe at the Dragons we'd be able to offer that, even if it's on a sort of short to medium term, sort of 2-year contracts, that sort of thing. We can guarantee things to the end of this PRA, or, you know, however long it may be. Obviously, the inner workings of the Dragons will know more. The hierarchy will know more than everybody else does. But yeah, you are. Look, if you speak to any diehard Dragons fan, this is the best season we've had in a long time. In it, we've won 2 games in the URC. We've drawn 3 games in the URC, 2 of which we should have won, no doubt about it. We've won a couple of games in Europe as well, which is a massive improvement. And we're not all looking at the Dragons fixtures going, "Oh, Dragons are definitely going to lose." You know, that's not happening anymore. And we also have been unlucky with injury. You know, we've lost both tight heads for the season. We've lost what was our star 13 signing, you know, Payer for however many months, and he's come back, looked like he's been on, you know, Colonel Sanders' dietary orders for the last last few months whilst he's been out here. Got a bit of timber to shift, but, you know, he's just coming back into the fray a little bit. He's only played 2 games off the bench. You know, we just haven't had that little rub of the green here and there as well. So, but yeah, on the whole, I'm much happier at this point than I was at this point last season, because I think that, you know, the crowds are getting bigger. You know, they're still reaching the community and everything else. So yeah, but I do agree with Nick. While South Africa, and probably no one's expecting us to do anything out at Stade Francais, I think, you know, we should be looking to beat Edinburgh at home and beating either the Scarlets or Zebra away. Personally, I'd like to go and win out in Italy. I think that would be good for us, and then see what happens on the last day down at Parker Scarlets. But yeah, on the whole, nobody can deny that we're not much improved.
So this is you're currently on your second highest points total in the URC table with 20. Highest been 24 in the 22-23 season, and you've got 6 games left.
Yeah,
there you go.
You know, like that is. I mean, it's a light and day seasons of last season. You had 9 points.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, you know, like, I think if you're a Dragons fan, all right, yeah, that loss might have been disappointing, but considering, you know, you're down to the bare bones in the pack, and you're still doing very well, you know, compared to what you have in the previously. Now, I know you want to be higher up in the table, you want to be challenging, but that is going to come.
Yeah, and look, we missed Wainwright on the weekend. There's no doubt about that. We missed Ben Carter probably in the lineout. But ultimately, we've got to be used to playing without Wayne, haven't we? Because he ain't going to be there next season. So I was a bit more philosophical about that. And yeah, we are much. You know, if we can beat that total that you just mentioned there, which was what, 24, then again, I think the season's been a grand success. We've got 6 games left. You know, I just hope we fire a couple of shots out in South Africa. We've seen other Welsh teams go over there and not win, but fire some shots. And I hope we do that. I just hope we don't end up losing like 40 odd or 50 odd 7, and it'd be a complete waste of a trip. You know, if we lose 40 odd, 20 odd, but we pick up a bonus point, so be it. Great.
I see. So moving on to the final URC game of the weekend. So Nick, guessing you actually went to this one.
I did. Yeah. It was.
You need to stop
great...
going. They keep winning when you go.
Yeah, it was a great win against a decent Ulster team. Huge effort from the pack, starters and the bench, and we finished the game really strongly. We absolutely dominated possession in the second half, in particular, and territory. But we were guilty of not turning into points until the last 10 minutes. We spurned a lot of chances, and we should have won. If we'd really been a bit more efficient, we should have won quite easily. Walsh has a lot of qualities and does a decent job at 10, but he's a better 15. So I'm not blaming him for that. They were pick and goes that we kept on dropping and so on from 5, 6 yards out. It was nice to see Luke Scully on the pitch. He's an outside half, can play centre as well. He came on for Jack Walsh while he had a HIA, and it's the first time he's been on the field for almost 18 months. He's had a couple of injuries, so that for him personally, and that was great. Whilst we made a lot of mistakes, I have to give some credit to the Ulster defence, which when you were sort of away from home, uh, to keep the team out, had so much possession in your 22. That was really, really impressive. They didn't offer much in attack, I'll be honest with you, other than the tries they scored. Our scum schooled Ulster in both halves. Gareth Thomas and his 150th appearance was great, as was Rhys Henry. And on the where obviously we were bringing Tommy Beaufort off the bench and Steph Thomas as well. They did really well. The second rounds were great. Ross Moriarty carried really hard. I think James Ratty was the official player of the match, and I understand that decision because he had a really good game. But for me, something we've talked about, we might even come back to his name in a minute when we talk about Wales, was Owen Watkin. He was superb in defence, but also really good in attack. He carried the ball really well, and it was really fitting that his great little kick through, which sort of Lowry, the Ulster fullback, failed to deal with, and Daniel Kasende managed to get the try, which obviously put it beyond doubt. We had to wait a long time for the officials to decide whether it was a try or not, but it added sort of to the drama and fun as well. But from a personal note, I didn't agree with the decision to award a try because it knackered my prediction of a 3-point win for the Ospreys. So I was quite upset about that. And I think I was the only Osprey fan in the ground who was wanting Ulster to score with their final play. In seriousness, no, though, the tackle by Iestyn Hopkins summed up the Ospreys at the moment, the togetherness and commitment to the team, and the players and coaches have shown since Christmas. He kept the tremendous last gasp tackle in injury time to keep the Ulster right wing out. I could have gone for a cheap joke there, but we're too classy in this podcast to say his name. But it was it summed it up. It was a brave, determined win. And when you consider the cloud that's hanging over the Ospreys, you'd be pretty mean-spirited, or and if you're a neutral, to begrudge the team this and the fans for having something to celebrate, because it's been tough. And as you've alluded to, Harley, we've had a really good period since Boxing Day. A run of home games has given us 3 wins and a draw, I think. And I think I worked out a possible 20 points in the league. You've managed 15 points, which isn't a bad effort. And that leaves us in ninth. Still a lot to play for. But we've got to pick some wins on the road, because realistically
So you play us at cap at some point.
Yeah, we need to win a couple on the road, to be honest with you, because I think to get in top 8 in May, you're looking usually 48 to 50 points, and we've currently only got 29 points. 6 games to go, 2 which at home, so we've got to keep our momentum at home, win those 2 games, but we do need to pick something up on the road as well. But all things considered, really, really pleased for everybody, particularly the team. And by the team, I mean the wider team as well, the coaches and so on, because it can't be easy, can it, going into work, not knowing, what your future is and so on. All in all, a very enjoyable evening, and a well-deserved win.
Anyone want to?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the sort of old adage that scrums win games was more than pertinent for the. I'm not saying that's the only reason why the Ospreys win, but it gives you a massive edge, doesn't it? When you can, eke out the scrum penalty here and there. It just takes that pressure off. You can have a free play, knowing that you can kick it to the corner if you need to. And I thought they did an absolutely fantastic job on the Ulster scrum. And I got to be honest, I thought they were good value for the win. In a way, I was a little bit disappointed they didn't get the 4th, if I'm honest. I thought the bonus point was there for the taking. But if you're the Ospreys, Ulster are going well, irrespective of the fact they've got they've got an increased presence in the Island squad lately. It was a pretty fully loaded Ulster team, wasn't it? Especially when you consider they bring in Angus Bell off the bench and Dope played at 9 and so on. And who's the guy on the wing they signed from South Africa?
Cock.
Yeah, there you go. Come on. But yeah,
We'll leave Cardiff Central to deal with all the cock jokes.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
But he's a good rugby player as well, isn't he? On the wing,
Yeah.
he's been a potent finisher. So I thought it was a real good, Fortress Brewery field, isn't it?
Aye.
Is it? Have you lost
It's
it
getting
yet?
better. It's
Well, I
getting
mean,
better.
it does have a moat round the edge.
Yeah, not on purpose though. That's the bloody weather we've had in this country over.
I apologise to the Bridge and groundskeeper staff. You do what is frankly miracle work to keep that pitch playable.
Yeah, no. All jokes aside, they have done. And I suppose really it's important now that I can sort of tip the cap to all the Welsh teams. I think in the in the competition, because all right, the Scarlets lost, but we're in it, and nobody. If the Scarlets come away with something, a bit more substantial, nobody would have moaned about that, because especially based on the first half performance, they were by far the better team. It was effectively a game of two halves up in Edinburgh, quite literally. Cardiff are third in the table at the minute.
Yep, third. So
the
if you want, I can do I can just do a run down on the table if you want, just to
yeah,
see
go
where all the
for it.
Welsh sides are. So you got Cardiff in third on 40 points. As Nick said, Ospreys on 29 are in 9th. Then you've got Dragons in 14th on 12, and Scarlets in 15th on 16 points. But they do have that game in hand, which is a way to Connacht, I believe.
Yeah.
And, even away and go away, that seems to be a bit of a lottery with what Connacht turns up. So you never know with
Yeah.
that in a couple of weeks' time.
And look, I think you got to take league positions obviously important, but there's the performance element this weekend, I think, that you've got to look at. And I think everyone, bearing in mind, without the host of Welsh internationals, have stuck their hand up to be counted this weekend in all four teams. And again, it just shows to me that a couple of £1 million extra, and we're all pushing into the for the playoffs, aren't we? That's the reality. There's a team that the Ospreys are there or thereabouts now. Cardiff are going to finish in the Ospreys. And the Dragons and the Scarlets are definitely in a transition, and from our perspective in Gwent, it's much improved. So is dropping one really the answer? Yeah, come on, it's not. Look at the amount of youngsters that have played this. You take Carwyn Leggett-Jones, a prime example, right? 18 years of age, he's having to play at the moment, right? That's how, because the financial burdens and maybe some of the transfer policy at the Scarlets. But if we go to 3, for example, where's he getting his game time at this level? Because whichever team would go, they're losing a 10. They're adding a 10 potentially into another squad. So we got to think of this. Evan Minto played for the Dragons on the weekend, Wales 20s. If someone goes, if we pick up like a Ross Moriarty and a Morgan Morse, for example, from the Ospreys, if the Ospreys are to go, is Minto going to play? Where's he going to get his development, and where's he going to get his game time from? So we've been on about this taking them 2 years to get to this point, but I just hope, we need to shut the stable door before the horse bolts, I think, because there's definitely something. Every region is performing at some level, and everyone's improving, I think, week on week at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're compete. All the teams are being competitive on what little budget we've got. So, I mean, if your W is really that struggling and they can't give us more money because they want to spend money on the women, the women's game, so that it's actually something that could be called funding and not loose change, which is not.
Although
that's
I
not
will
where the money's
say,
coming from.
Harley,
They don't seem to be doing that.
before
because I know
anyone
we'll
says
get-
anything, they are separate pots of money. We are
Yeah.
not stealing the Ospreys' money to
I'm not
pay
saying
for
they're
the
stealing-
women's game.
I'm not saying that that's the same, but I'm saying if that's where they want to put extra money to try and bring that up to something that is actually reasonable because they need before funding into regions. Well, clearly we can, it only takes an injury crisis to mess us up, but we're still competitive. If they want to instigate this national academy, then all right, maybe that is the hard conversation we have, is that instead of trying to put all the teams up onto £7 or £8 million a year, you keep it as it is. You build an academy, you build up other things so that so women's teams get set up. I know it's not stealing that money from a pot before angry commenters start. I am aware that's not the point I'm making. The point is that if there is still only one WRU pot, and if they want to put it onto that, but if they're going to use it for pumping up execs' wages, I kind of don't give a shit if you've changed the people who supply your flowers to save money. If you're basically funneling all those savings directly into like 2 or 3 people's salaries. If these monies and this saving is going into things that will actually make it, increasing the women's budget by £100,000 could do a lot. Increasing the regions, you might get 2 players. This is where I feel like the money needs to be spent better, and where it actually be nice to have transparency to know where all this different money is supposed to be going. Because when we were looking at it, when they had their plans, they were saying, "Oh yeah, we're cutting this amount of money out, and we're going to put this much into the other teams." And then there's this still little bit of money where I don't know where it's gone. And I think Nick, you were one of those who pointed out, saying the numbers didn't necessarily add up between the different models.
And the other
it wasn't
thing,
just benefactor.
just to add to that, and I've come round to thinking the 2+2 model. And I'm perhaps you'd say, well, you would say that I'm an Osprey fan, but if it was done through a fair process, and I have to say Cardiff we're included in that process, and you decide which 2 teams are better funded and which 2 teams aren't, and Ospreys aren't, I'd settle for that now to have a team. And because as Dan's point is correct, if I totally agree in the player development centres and trying to get more boys and girls of a higher quality coming into the game, but where are they going to play? Is it, within the men's section? How much are those players like Carwyn Leggett Jones going to improve if they're only playing week in, week out for Llandovery? They need to be playing at a higher standard. With respect to Llandovery, it's not the highest standard, and I don't think even with a little bit of extra money, Super Rugby companies is ever going to reach that sort of standard where you're really going to develop players. They need to be playing in the URC and Europe to really push on.
Yeah, and I think that's, I just got the Dragons results in front of me now to kind of make the point that the Dragons drew 15-all with Benetton on the weekend with the best team that we could put out. Not quite our best team with a couple of injuries and whatnot, but the best team that we could put out on the day. And we've just made an argument that, we should have won the game, right? It wasn't that long ago that we lost 74-21 to the same team. Okay, similar lineups for Benetton, I believe. I just have a quick double check now. Maybe a bit better. There's a few more Italian internationals in there, but the back row of Uran, Umaga, Fekitoa, Rotave, Adogwu, Gallagher, only Liner missing. Now the same back line, minus Liner, played at Rodney Parade. The difference was 74-21. And again, the point being is the lads that played that day for, Richards played at 13, Rosser played, Hugh Anderson played, Westwood played for the Dragons. These are boys that are playing regularly in the URC, or in Di Richards' case, is a winger playing in the centre, but has come from not the URC, the SRC, sorry. So the difference, in theory, is 50-odd points. If that makes sense. So how does the union go about bridging that gap? Is kind of what I'm saying, is because every other fixture the Dragons played where they've been fully loaded this season, irrespective of losses. You go 22-20 away at Munster, 19-13 away at the Ospreys, 15-all against Benetton, 35-12 win against Newcastle, 74-21 when you have to rotate the squad, which obviously you have to do, and I think it's that's the same for lots of us in terms of regions, maybe at different levels. But how do we how do you bridge what is effectively a 50-odd point gap?
Yeah, and for the conversely as well, you have to say some teams who have on a lot more money than us underperform. Can you say
Yeah.
that Berriton perform well on the money they're on? Can you
No.
say Edinburgh perform well on the money they're on?
Leinster
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
famously told they're underperforming.
yeah, no, but you see my point is
No, I
that
do.
they're
Yeah,
on
I
an
do.
awful lot more money than our
I do.
teams are, and they're not an awful lot better than our teams on almost half the money.
I mean,
Yeah.
even just look at the Welsh sides. I think some of our collective team performances back when we were on 7 to 10 million, I'd say aren't as good as. I mean, supposedly with better quality players and bigger squads and better players, we had arguably we were underperforming on that. When you look at what we're doing when we strip back, because we've had to basically, there's almost no mercy with it. Now, you can't really carry anyone who's sort of not quite living up to potential. Yes, you're probably going to throw out people who you probably maybe would want to keep, but other people like injuries. Like Dragons probably would have kept Ashton Hewitt a bit longer if it wasn't for the fact that the budget's that tight and they needed to sign up someone of the likes of Vinny and Nisi.
Mm.
Cardiff had to do it when they let Gwilym Bradley go. But and it's heartbreaking because these are people with lives and mortgages, but we can't afford to just have people on our injury table and in the physio room all season.
That's
No,
professional sport, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm sure, and it's a precarious job, isn't it? If you get injured, have long-term injuries, and you've only know what you've got for the length of your contract, but that's 2 or 3 years.
yeah, but I suppose to Harley's point there is if, like, for example, the Dragons picked up Di Richards, who's playing on the wing now, right? So it's like for like comparison. I would say that the Dragons have saved massively on the wages by letting Ashton go and bringing Di in. I would say I don't know, so I'm speculating, and I'm happy to be corrected, but I would have thought that's the case. Now, what would have been the ideal scenario? Wouldn't it have been able to keep Ashton,
Yeah.
and maybe add Di Richards as well? Because I think Di Richards done really well when he's played on the wing. He's certainly not a 13 for us, I don't think, but when he's played on the wing, he's done well. So then you're adding to it and not making the choice of going, oh well, we need that winger, but we can't afford to keep Ashton Hewitt. Ashton's more experienced at this level, good try scorer. Okay, he's a little bit injury prone, but we'd love to keep him, but we can't. We're going to save 50% on his salary. That's a big, those are tough decisions to be making, aren't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is it's tough, but I think everyone should be proud of their efforts this year, and it does go to show to me that if we can just bridge that gap between sort of under 20s and squad and SRC better into the regional team, then we won't be, and improve the budgets a little bit. We won't be in a position where we're losing to one team 74-21 in the Dragons case, with a very similar team that, from a Benetton perspective, all right, the packs change, but then go and draw 15 all with them. That's a massive swing, isn't it? Massive point swing. I know one's home, one's away. There's all of those other factors, but it's a massive, massive point swing. How do we bridge that level of performance? From within the squad. How do you improve that? It'd be, you look down the Treviso back line, and how nice would it be to have the Fekitoa in your squad, the Umaga in your squad, the Ratavi in your squad, these people who've got that X factor, that experience, that have been there and done it, and you're not going to lose them to international duty. That's genuine competition within the squad, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not going to happen if Debris get this way because
It's
along
not.
with dropping a region, they want to get rid of basically all non-Welsh qualified players. I think unless they're very strongly likely to qualify in residency. Anyway,
That's a
so I think
topic
that's
for another
enough
day,
because
yeah.
I feel like that's yet again going into yet more podcast time. Now we're going to go. Oh, well, I have tabled Angolan's Celtic Challenge, but I really don't want to talk about it because of one of the results. And it's definitely not because the team I like lost badly. But Hattie, you can talk now because I just want to cry now.
No problem. So, for those who have not been keeping up with the Celtic Challenge, Britain are on a 4-game winning streak, whilst Gwalia are on a 4-game losing streak. Unfortunate. When you look at the fixtures that both teams had, it does make a little bit of sense. Gwalia did have a much harder end of season, whereas Brithon had a much harder beginning of season, just on how it lined up. And obviously Brithon had the shock win last week, which nobody was expecting. Brithon went away and got a 32-10 win over Glasgow, while Gwalia were at home and lost 52-7 to the Wolfhounds, which is basically Leinster. Kate Williams was back again for Brithon Thunder, and was just absolutely unreal. I believe she got player of the match. She was just absolutely destructive, really, really added to the leadership for that team as well. And it is a very, very young team. Apart from like one or two, most of them are in uni or, early 20s. There's a couple that are older, but most of them are very, very young still. Gwalia are really, really struggling with a handful of players who've gone back to the PWR. So Maisie Davis, for example. But then also they're missing the likes of Tilly Vuchai, who is out injured. I think it's either her shoulder or her elbow. I know it's definitely her arm. So that's a real shame. Brithon, I will say, although they have improved greatly, if you watch them, it's not because they're being coached well. The team is playing purely off vibes. The back line, it is like a bunch of people who've never met, but they're just having fun. And the forwards, at least they've learned how to ruck, which they did not know how to do last year. So that's a positive. But yeah, final game of the regular season is this weekend, which is a derby at the park. And Gwalia are currently sat third, Brithon are sat fourth. If Brithon beat Gwalia, then they're both in the playoffs. I think Gwalia have technically qualified either way. It just depends whether they sit third or fourth. But yeah, hopefully it's a Brithon win so that they both make it in.
And likely both going away to semi-finals against Irish teams.
Yeah, so whoever goes third will be away to the Clovers, which should be Munster area. Whereas the team who come fourth will be playing the Wolfhounds. They'll be in Dublin or Belfast. Although they might end up doing it as a double header because the Irish like to do double headers for the Celtic Challenge, so they could both be in wherever.
I'll see. Yeah, Bristol might as well win because there's no chance of Gwalia getting second.
Yeah, you might as well just let the win and then they're both in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just upset all the Scots.
Mm.
Can I ask what's happened to Edinburgh? Because they, were
Dropped
punching
off.
for
Yeah.
they were pushing for like second last season.
So in the last year they were really bad.
Oh, sorry, first season then.
First year they made it to the final, I think, and lost. And then last year they just bombed it, and then this year they've just really not been very good. So don't really know what's going on with the two Scottish teams. Glasgow is a lot better than it was. It's really difficult because I feel like the Scottish teams, they're trying to really develop very, very young squads into being decent teams within like 5 years. Whereas the Irish teams are just full of internationals and the Welsh team is somewhere in between. But yeah, they do have some absolute stinkers.
I genuinely thought you were just gonna go, oh, it's the David Nucifora effect. But we'll not. I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna leave that there. You've got Women's Rugby Treehouse to go.
I would say that, but they've actually stank before he was involved. So not
Right.
everything is David Nucifora. I wish it was. I wish I could blame everything on him, but unfortunately.
There you go. Rugby is much worse when someone called Dave or David is running things. And I'm going to leave that there. Right. So if you've been enjoying our ramblings for now, please do like and subscribe, share the podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, there should be little things popping up for shops. So you get beige banded t-shirts for all the various pods. Hattie, I'll give you more time. You get more time to talk about women's rugby on Women's Rugby Treehouse, which allegedly is recording this week, if not next week.
Yes,
So they'll be found on our
hopefully,
sister channel.
as long as World War III doesn't kick off.
Again, less said about that, the better. Anyway, so yeah, check out our sister channel, Global Game Line. If you are an audio listener, please share a link with a friend because that is the only way really podcasts spread is through word of mouth. Moving on now, we're gonna wrap up quickly with a bit of Walesy because I'm getting very, very tired. So Wales face heading up to Dublin on the weekend. We're gonna go play Ireland. So I think we all sort of agreed after the Scotland game that we want to keep the team as second. So we'll do the team and then we'll talk potential tactics, how it's going to go. So news came out of the press conference today. Sam Costello will not be available for this game, which is unfortunate, but they're hoping he'll be ready for the Italy game. So question for you. So two questions for you guys. First of all, do we just have Jim Botham come into the back row for Plumtree?
Yeah.
And then the other one is Dan Edwards straight into start?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely both of them. I thought he acquitted himself very well. I think, as we said last week, the back row had a nice balance to it with him and Man, 6 and 7.
Right, and any pushback on the Dan Edwards coming in at 10? Did anyone want Jared or to see keep his role on the bench?
Definite finisher.
Right, which leaves so for the team then. So we're happy with basically everyone else.
I'd like to make a case for a change of 14. I didn't think, I said last week, I didn't think Gamma Webb, and I'm not blaming him for the try at all. He didn't really impress me, and I don't know what Tom Rogers has done. I'd like to see Tom Rogers given a chance on that 14.
So
I agree, but different number.
Yeah, okay, but
Yeah.
I think he deserves a chance.
So would you? Oh, and Ellis Mee is Ellis Mee out or is he?
Nothing.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot Alice Mee, but I
Yeah.
don't know what Tom Rogers has done. Alice Mee did a right against England, no, England, France, didn't he? I don't think, I'm not
I think
sure.
that back three, although I'm not sure about Louis Rees-Zammit at 15, I think that back three does work. I don't get why it was changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Nick.
Did you think Game of Web deserves to another go?
No.
I wish we'd seen him now. I mean, for me, I'd quite like to bring the two Scarlets boys back in and with and I'd have bring Tom Rogers at 15, but I think we much like with the Eddie James at 13, we're going to see Louis Rees-Zammit at 15 every game this Six Nations.
The only thing I'd say about
think
Tom Rogers at 15, he hasn't played there. The last time he played 15, I think was, I had a look after we spoke before, was the first game of the season before last in Benetton. So it's a big ask of any player when he's played almost 2 seasons on the wing to ask him to go play fullback in international.
Well, I mean, he basically got moved to wing from fullback because of starting off with Johan Lloyd playing 15, and then when Blair Murray started getting picked at fullback for Wales,
yeah,
he got sort of pushed there then. But I mean, he has done basically all of his rugby up to that sort of point.
He hasn't played there for 2 years though, almost.
Yeah, but Louis Rees-Zammit didn't play rugby for like 2 years.
And we brought him back in.
He has played a lot of rugby at 15 for Bristol.
Yeah, they're going to keep him there. We can argue the toss about that.
It's the same as the Eddie James at 13 thing for me. They're going to persist with it.
The only thing I'd say in Gabriel Hamer-Webb's defence is he took a hell of a whack on the beak. Poof. Didn't he just see his nose? He looked like the Elephant Man. Love him. He was swollen up that much. Really, that's rugby for you. And also, I don't think he was brought into the game for his aerial prowess. Attacking. Trying to get the ball back for us. And I don't think we kicked well enough for him to do that. We weren't box kicking into those sort of 5-meter channels. They weren't contestable enough. So maybe against Ireland, we'll look to improve that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they keep him in there. But alternatively, I wouldn't be. I'm not bothered by whether you go with Hamer Webb, Rogers, me. Blair Murray did okay when he come on the wing as well. So there's that option. I don't think we've got anyone that's so stand out. But then I suppose there's normally people that score hat-trick against the All Blacks. And you can't buy it.
In fact, there's only 4.
There you go. And he can't, he can't buy a start at the moment. So maybe Nick's, I think Nick's right. That's probably the only position I would have said that's up for any sort of debate. And the reason being, I think they like continuity. I like continuity as well, where possible. And in fairness, the last outing was a good one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We did okay.
Who would you guys pick to be your bench lock option?
I think I know the point you're trying to make is they seem to like Freddie Thomas. I just don't see that being changed. I'm not convinced by Archie Griffin. I would be quite happy as an artist come in. I know he's hasn't had a lot of rugby, but for me, he's a better bet to come on for 20-25 minutes to lock up the scrum.
He looked decent enough against Leinster, to be fair. In the
Didn't
game, the scrums were quite important, and he made his tackles. So I do get that. For me, I think it's Freddie Thomas purely because things we discussed in that there's no point putting Beard on the bench.
No,
and I think you keep that starting lock partnership.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the rogue option
would be
brilliant. I mean, the rogue option would be to parachute Ryan Woodman in, but I feel like that would be a very harsh intro to senior international rugby for Woodman.
He does give you that cover though, doesn't he?
Yeah.
4, 5, 6.
I mean, you put him and then you pick someone like McLeod as your sort of other back row option, and you're basically covered. Or I mean, you could even go with someone like Harry Deeves.
Hey, look.
Do you guys?
Sorry, Hattie. I agree with you guys or whoever was saying then that they're going to stick with it. So I think we can talk about it till the cows come home.
It's going to be Freddie Thomas, yeah. It's going to be Freddie Thomas. It's probably going to be Archie Griffin.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah. Probably.
I think 20 jerseys is open slightly because of Plumtree's injury, and it is whether or not they want to go for having that sort of 6 second row hybrid. And I suppose if you've got Freddie Thomas, you don't really need it. So I say you're probably looking at McLeod or Deeves.
I make a case of Cracknell then.
I would like Cracknell.
That's very hard on Harry Deeves and McLeod, who both would do a good job, and Tom McLeod was very good for Scarlets on Friday night. But he does offer a hard carrying, doesn't he? Especially if, God forbid, Wainwright went down in the first 10, which could happen.
I think as well, because Deeves and McLeod, because Deeves was released, wasn't he, back to the Ospreys?
Yeah, Deeves
which says to me that they're probably not going to be playing that in that Island game.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think, same as because the other option I'd take is I'd probably go for either Watkin or Grady as your 23. Because I feel like, as well as Blair Murray played, I feel like having an outside back with the backline we have does leave you exposed at centre. Mostly because Adams at 13 scares me every time it's mentioned.
Shall I run through the team that I've got written down based on the random things you guys have said and our previous team that we'd selected?
That's good.
Okay. So we've got Care Lake, Francis, Dav, Carter, Mann, Botham, Wainwright.
Yeah.
Yep. This is where it gets a bit weird, is when we get to the centres. We've got Williams, Edwards, me at 11. Are we happy with that?
Yeah, not really sleeping now.
And then 12 and 13, this is obviously where it becomes either the centre partnership we would like versus the centre partnership we think Wales are going to pick.
I still think they're going to change, Hattie.
But you say that, but considering he almost got a red card.
I just don't think they're going to change. Unless they're injured, I can see them changing that centre partnership for the whole Six Nations.
I'd agree with that.
Okay. So you guys want to go Eddie James at 13?
I mean, we don't want to. It's just
we've
given up picking our own team now.
Well, this is it. It's a philosophical exercise. Do you want to go with the team that you would like to see, or the team that you think is going to be picked?
Well, I'd like Eddie James to move in one, and I'd like to see Owen Watkin at 13, but it's not going to happen.
Well, if we put it out into the universe, it might happen. So I'm going to leave it as Watkin at 13 and James at 12. Josh Adams at 14, Louis Rissam at 15. And then the bench, Elias Smith, Azarati,
Okay.
Thomas, Cracknell, Hardy, Evans. And then I originally had Grady, but I don't know if you guys want to change that. Just because we've had Grady on the bench the entire time, I think.
He's done all right when he's come on, I thought, Grady.
Yeah.
And if we're starting Watkin in our team, then
I think for like balancing those back subs, I think Grady fits. Also, Dick can double up as a flank. And the only real option there I'd say is an actual that would be useful is Louis Hennessy, and I feel like it's feels like the wrong game.
that's not going to happen to him out in Ireland.
No,
Is it?
No,
okay, yeah.
no, I feel like he's in this squad for training and getting involved in the environment, and just letting them know that Wales are thinking of you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree
I
more.
imagine he'll be sent when we send a ragtag team of misfits out to Argentina, so that our first choice team aren't completely knackered for South Africa. That'll be his game.
Yep.
Agreed.
Right, so I think that's the team. So how do we think this is going to go? We've not really done well out in Dublin,
No.
even when we was good.
No.
Good news is we won't be playing James Lowe. So
The bad news is we won't be playing James Lowe, so it'll be someone who can actually turn around and
someone that
defence.
can actually sprint.
I think we're gonna look, if they play like they did against England, it could be a long old afternoon, couldn't it? But then we were much improved against Scotland. If we can win a bit more in the aerial battle, Ireland 34, Wales 23.
I don't think it's going to be as close as that. We are playing a top 14. For me, it's about performance. Can the scrum and line up work well again? Can we be more competitive in the air? As Dan saying, to be better kicking. Can we make it hard for Ireland to score? So they got to go through a lot of phases. But I do think, and can we score more than 2 tries ourselves? So if we can get a few yeses to those questions, I'd be relatively happy. But I think it's going to be like hopefully below 50. But I think there might be something like 47, 17.
Say that, but then Ireland v Italy was 2013.
Yeah, we saw the proper Irish team in
Italy are going to beat us as well, though.
I don't know. It really depends on whether Ireland were just completely gung ho on let's go after England and the game plans fell off, or whether it's been genuine improvement week on week. I think
I'd be absolutely delighted to be wrong.
Yeah, I can't see us winning, not on a month of Sundays.
I mean,
Oh,
you,
no.
you get the rage, the whole, it's raging against the dying of the light. Very similar to like Pivac's Wales, where they could pull up enough muscle memory to pull off a performance. But even still, I feel like the Cardiff Stakes. I think one thing that a lot of Irish podcasters talk about is saying that England played into their hands by making sure the game had lots of rucks.
Yeah.
They're happy for phase play. Like I think with Ireland, you actually want to be in. You want transitions. You want things. Unfortunately, we don't want transitions with how we're set because after we're still sort of learning our defensive shape and the like and attacking shape. I think kicking to peak could be an issue. So I don't think they're necessarily the best team in the air, and their scrum I think is gettable. Whether it's gettable for Wales is another story, but the Ireland scrum isn't the best thing in the world. I mean, it will depend on whether or not Andy Farrell wants to do what he did with Italy and sort of rotate things around. Maybe, having some of the frontline players on the bench, which then just means that we'll think we're doing really well, and then in the last 20 minutes, all hell breaks loose. It's the thing. I don't see Wales win. I don't even think it'll be close. But what I'm hoping for is that. I mean, I feel like a stuck record bit. As long as the things that went well in the Scotland game are the same, if not a bit better, and the things that went slightly wrong are slightly better again, and we get beaten up by, just basically a team playing better than us, I can live with that. But if it's sort of like what happened last Six Nations, where we had a really positive third game, and then the second game was a bit meh. And then we got that England game. I just be thinking, well, what are we actually doing? We seem to only be able to get up for one game, and even that one game we get up for, we still can't win. That's where I think I'd be a bit more disappointed. Which leads me to any other business, because I'm guessing Dan doesn't want to talk about Abbotsleary losing on the weekend. So
Low that, lowest of the low. We've been on here.
No need for that.
Hour and 40 minutes. You're going to stick the boot in.
sorry, mate. Sorry, mate. On the plus side, at least you weren't trying to mock the defence coach of Abbotsleary and then getting lost in the wrong field.
And they remain nameless.
Yeah, definitely. Who would do such a thing?
Yeah, Nick's famous sense of direction there.
Yeah.
Right, so I think unless anyone has any other business they do actually want to talk about, I think that's time to end. So thank you, Dan. Thank you, Hattie. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, host. And thank you all for listening. Nosta.
Nosta.
Nosta.